Hey, welcome to another episode of Brass Check. This is the return from the long trip episode. Uh, Pleasantly tired. I was gone for 45 days and 45 nights, and I only got hassled twice. Once when I was leaving England on the way home to the United States, and when I arrived in the United States. Those were the only times I got hassled. It's hilarious. Uh, I always carry some serious cash on me, $20 bills, in case the credit cards go bad, in case who knows what. Because if you have US $20 bills, they will be accepted anywhere in the world, uh, even if your credit card doesn't work or if there's some kind of electronic glitch. So I always carry some with me, and I had a roll of them in my pocket. So I went through security at Stansted Airport in the UK, and I set off the alarm, and they said, empty your pockets. So I pulled out this, roll of 20s, and they freaked out. They literally freaked out. How much money is there? I said, I don't know. It's way less than $10,000. You don't know how much it is? Why don't you know? I know how much money I have. I think if we stopped 100 people in the street, asked them how much money they had in their pocket, very few could give you the exact amount. Any event, they held me up for about an hour. I'm not upset. My voice is just going. They held me up on my feet for an hour, saying they were going to count it. I said, well, count it. See how much there's there. And then I said, well, what's the limit? What can you not carry on a plane outside of England? We can't answer that question, sir. Just unbelievable. And then one of the little security gutter snipes proudly announced that I don't even carry cash. I'm like, well, good for you. I mean, just absolute idiots. But I was the one that was put out. And I politely asked every 10 minutes, will somebody please, now that you've stopped me and have basically arrested my progress here, would you please, count the money or do whatever it is you need to do? And after an hour of asking, finally some manager came and said, oh, no problem, you can go. So I guess if you're going through UK security, you better put your cash in the through that machine with your luggage and everything else, or they're going to stop you and make a big deal about it. So that was the UK. And then in the US, I flew home very conveniently to Newburgh, New York, which is a little regional airport. Really amazing. I got to give a plug for the airline, Play, Play, out of Iceland. Incredible service. I mean, so far beyond the usual service you get from an airline. Anyway, it was very convenient to land in Newburgh, except for one thing. It's a hayseed town, and there were about literally 20 security people supervising 50 people getting off a plane from Iceland. And of course, they had to make trouble. So, where did you go? Well, I told them I went here, I went there. You better tell them where you went because it's in your passport. And I said, I went to Turkey and I went to Morocco. Morocco? Where's that? She didn't know, but she felt she needed to upgrade it to one of her supervisors. And I was taken into a little room and I had to answer questions like, what were you doing in Morocco? How long were you there? What do you do for a living? How long have you been doing that? I mean, absolute bullshit. And I was, again, on the road for 45 days. I went to Portugal. I went to Turkey. I went to Morocco. I entered the UK very easily. But leaving, as I pointed out, I got hassled, and arriving in the US, I got hassled. It's absolutely pathetic. By the way, you go to London, God bless them. There's no mask hysteria. New York has just become a smoking crater of neurosis and idiocy. The signs are still everywhere. You still see lots of people wearing masks. London, no. Istanbul, no. Lisbon, no. Morocco, no. And met a lot of resistors in Morocco. I mean, a lot of people they were not buying it. They were not buying it. Many, 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 many people did not get vaccinated in Morocco. And it shows they're healthy, they're mentally sound. They're out and about. They're doing great things. Anyway, that's the initial part of my home trip. But I was thinking about this book that I put out right before I left, 87 Days of Terror. And the U.S. led NATO attack on the civilians of Yugoslavia. And I actually started reading it again. I wrote all this in, I don't know, when was it? 99. So that's 23 years ago. Time flies when you're having a good time. And I was horrified at the time when the U.S. and NATO and the UN were savaging innocent civilians in Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia. I mean, it was a horrifying thing. And not equally horrifying, but supplementally horrifying was the fact that so many progressives and Democrats and liberals thought it was a great idea to be bombing civilians I mean, there's never a reason to bomb civilians, but there was really no reason to bomb civilians. They attacked schools, they attacked hospitals, they attacked food factories, they attacked bridges, they attacked railroad lines, all because the government of Serbia refused to let NATO just move in and take over. If you look into it's all in the book. It's all in the book. They were basically told, we want to be able to come and go whenever we please. We want to be immune from all law. I mean, the conditions that NATO was asking for were absurd. So that's that part of the book. And this is one of the only documents you're going to find anywhere, blow by blow, day by day, because I every day that I followed that crazy story, I wrote my impressions, and it is a blow by blow account of this illegal, immoral assault on humanity. And what worried me was, okay, if they can do this to Serbia, what's next? Remember, this is before George W. Bush, the idiot, invaded Iraq, killing hundreds of thousands of people and tens of thousands of U.S. service people and private contractors. So a lot more people died than people realized. The private contractors do not get counted in the death count. And the destruction of people's lives and their homes and their livelihoods and their communities, the murder of children by the tens of thousands of children. Anyway, that all happened after the Serbia thing. So the answer to my question, what's next? If they can get away with that, what else are they going to do? Well, they escalated and they completely destroyed Iraq, with Americans cheering and waving their flags through most of it, at least for the first couple of years. Obviously, we didn't hear a brass check, and I'm sure many of you did not either. And then there's Syria, 400,000 dead in Syria in a so-called uprising that we helped fund. We and our allies helped fund. So that was one of the reasons I was so concerned about what was going on in the former Yugoslavia in the late 90s. But there's in addition to being the only, I don't know if anybody else did it, I haven't found it, a day-by-day, blow-by-blow account of all the lies that were told as they were being told, and then as they were dismantled bit by bit, because they would lie, and then a week later or a month later, they'd finally have to tell the truth. The whole thing was based on a mountain of lies. But there's two other things in this book that are really amazing that you're not going to find anywhere else. I think everybody's aware of Waco, the story of Waco. How many people know that it looks like Wesley Clark, the famous general who was also the NATO leader during the attack on the civilians, that Wesley Clark was probably the guy behind Waco? Yeah, that's in this book. Nobody else knows that. And I provide all the evidence. Somebody did print a short article, like an excerpt from my blog posts. I forget the name of the publication, but that's it. Nobody realizes that Wesley Clark, he was head of Fort Hood. All that armor that was sent down to Waco the day before the raid, they had like 15, pieces of armor from Fort Hood. in the parking lot of the community college the day before the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms raided. Right? That shows that they had planned the thing long before. That armor was just sitting there. Why? Why? Anyway, I know why. It's in this book. It's nowhere else on earth. Nobody else has got that. There's something else in here which you can find, but you're going to have to dig very, 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 very deep, which is the true nature and the true role of the NSA in American society and American history. Everybody's aware that they're listening to this, I'm sure. They're recording it somewhere in one of their facilities. That they listen to everybody's phone calls, they read everybody's email, they capture everybody's email, everybody's text. It's all recorded. What they do with it, who knows? But they got it all stored. Everybody knows that. That used to be, by the way, a crazy conspiracy theory until it's not. Now it's widely known. What people don't know is that the NSA has superiority over the military. Yeah. You may not remember, even I didn't remember until I read my own writing, that one of the things that happened during the Yugoslavian war against the civilians there was the U.S. just lobbed some smart missiles into the Chinese embassy there, killing several Chinese embassy employees and journalists. Yeah. And I go in detail about how it was no accident. I show beyond any shadow of a doubt that the story that it was an accident or, miscalculation or errant missile is absolute bullshit. Those people, the specific people in that building were targeted with death and they were killed. And I also talk about how it's very likely, and I give the mechanism by which it happened, that was carried out by the NSA. Yet you can occasionally find research that deep into what the NSA really is and how the NSA really operates. You're going to have to look really hard to find it. And this is one of the few books on earth that documents that reality. If you're on a Navy ship, there is a communications room, and that communication room receives encrypted instructions. Right? So the captain's the captain of the ship, but he does what he's told. And all the instructions for what that ship does, where it goes, what it does, come out of that communications room. It's a nice setup. And a lot of people who are familiar with what really goes on on the high seas and elsewhere in the military are quite resentful that they are often used as what they call taxi drivers by the NSA. They never talk about it in public because it's a great way to lose your career and your pension, but it's the reality. So it's very easy for the NSA to just slip in an instruction and say, hit this building, and the Pentagon will do it. And we'll take the heat for it. And even the CIA will take the heat for it. As I point out in this book, and hard to find from any other source, the NSA is actually the chief enchilada. So there's a lot in this book, and then the most current thing is if you're at all puzzled what's going on in the Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia, it's just a variation on the theme. Russia has been provoked and provoked and provoked and provoked and provoked beyond. Look, they've got to protect their border. They can't have hostile armed people on their border. We can't. No country can. I'm not happy about what's happening there, especially for the civilians involved. But anyway, Russia's been provoked, as Yugoslavia was provoked. And that's the game. Just keep poking and poking and poking and poking and poking. Until the other side can't take it anymore and feels they have to do something. That's what that actually didn't even happen in Yugoslavia. A lot of the atrocities that supposedly happened in Yugoslavia never happened at all. They were staged, they were faked. And then NATO, which is really run by the US, gets involved as a surrogate illegally, covertly, And I talk about the mechanics of that in this book. And that's what's going on in Russia and Ukraine right now. You've got NATO sheep-dipped troops operating in Ukraine right now, fighting the Russians directly. Okay. Well, you had the same thing in Yugoslavia 23 years ago, and it's in this book. You're not going to find that anywhere else either. So this is one of the only day-by-day accounts of that 78 days of terror against civilians. It's the only account you're going to find of Wesley Clark's involvement in Waco. It's one of the very few accounts that talks about the mechanics of how the NSA actually is over and runs and can just insert an order into the military, and they just do it. And then they will take the heat for it. Right? And it talks about the mechanics of how NATO sheep dips its troops and goes in and does things in other countries, pretending to be, the the revolutionaries or the defenders or whatever. So this is actually, this is a deep book. And if you're interested in how the world really works and the realities of American history and to understand what's going on today, you will hardly find a better book. If anybody knows any of these great podcasters out there that wants to interview somebody who actually has things to say instead of regurgitating the same old stuff that everybody's talking about, point them to this book. Redacted, which is a great show. It's out of Porto, Lisbon. I love them. They're always talking about Serbia. We've been trying to reach them now for 2 months, and we cannot get any interest from them in this book. I don't know whether their communication system is so horrible they don't read their emails or what's going on. But if anybody knows them, we love them. We admire what they're doing. They would love what's in this book. People that are interested in this subject should know about it. So if you know any podcasters, send them to this book. I'm not going to get rich from this book. I'm not even going to cover my costs of putting it together. But it would be nice if those who are interested in this topic knew that this existed. And again, with all the podcasters out there that are yakking all day long about, I don't know what, I don't know how this book is being ignored, but it is. So anyway, if you want to know what really happened 23 years ago in Yugoslavia, if you want to know the mechanism by which NATO gets involved covertly in shooting wars now against Russia, if you want to know how the NSA uses the Pentagon as a taxi service, and if you want to know who actually was operating the Waco operation, and I prove it 18 different ways to Sunday. I mean, it's a circumstantial case, but wow. I mean, it's like the guy was there with a smoking gun in his hand. Did he pull the trigger? Maybe somebody pulled the trigger and handed him the gun. I mean, that could happen too, right? But in any event, we kind of nailed the Waco story better than anybody else, I think, ever. And it's all in 78 Days of Terror. I hope if you don't have it, you'll go out and get it, and tell people about it, and definitely tell people who are curious about how things actually work, that this book is out there, and they may want to look at it and learn from it, quite frankly. I have to say, I'm kind of impressed. I mean, I haven't really read the thing in 23 years. These were blog posts. We put it together in a book, which made it easier to read. And I'm kind of reading it going, wow, that's pretty good. So anyway, hope you'll click on the link. By the way, if you have read the book, if you have got it, please rate it or something, give it some stars. It deserves attention. I'm speaking on behalf of the book, not on the information in it. I got all kinds of other things going on. I don't need it to be a success, but I do feel badly that this very important document is not even known to the people that would be interested in it. And I blame the podcasters. You've heard me talk about them before. I don't get these guys. I don't really get what they're doing. Anyway, enough rambling from me. 78 Days of Terror, the U.S.-led NATO attack on the civilians of Yugoslavia, with the help, by the way, and the support the UN. Oh, there's also a whole bunch of stuff in here. You know how corporations are now like talking about diversity and equity and, solving that got rolling around this same period. And I discovered that I was writing about it in the late 90s. Um, it's all fake, by the way. These big companies don't give a rat's ass about anything but expanding their power. And they're now using this, green diversity smokescreen to advance their agendas. And that was actually getting rolled. I even pinpoint when it happened. There was a particular meeting at the UN in the late 90s, and where they literally changed their tune. The UN went from an organization that was, trying to keep big corporations in check to being corporations' best buddy. And now, that's the World Economic Forum in a nutshell. Anyway, get the book, talk about the book, tell the podcasters to wake up and get the book and read it and learn something. See you next time.